This is Jimmy.
And Scott.
And this is the Lead Domino podcast powered by MDP Lacrosse. On this podcast, we will be discussing with athletes, coaches, and other professionals what specific mental techniques they utilize to prepare, compete, and recover. These are the questions that fascinate us, and we want to hear what our guests do to be their best mentally. And hopefully, you get a little something out of these episodes to help move you forward. On today's episode, we host Jay Mauro. Jay is a Long Island native and attended Sachem High School before the split. Jay excelled at football, wrestling, and lacrosse at Sachem before taking his lacrosse talents to Butler University and then to Dowling College. Jay is now a teacher and head varsity boys lacrosse coach at Sachem North High School. We learn about early struggles in Jay's life that drove his work ethic, competitiveness, and desire to always be the best. Jay's intensity as an athlete shifted into a coaching role and is supported by the relationships he creates and cultivates while being guided by the quote-unquote big picture. From his struggles early in life to him raising kids of his own, it's clear that things will be okay when values are heading in the same direction. Follow Jay on Instagram at _Jay Mauro. That's at _JayMauro and his team at Sachem North Lax. Had a lot of fun talking with Jay today and definitely learned a lot. Hope you guys enjoy. Jay Mauro, welcome to the podcast.
Jimmy, thanks for having me. Much appreciated. I'm excited to do this.
Yeah, very happy to have you. So we're really going to touch on a lot of mental skills, mental habits you've picked up, you've cultivated. But first, let's start with your background. Kick us off and tell us about yourself, where you've been, where you're at, where you're going, things like that.
All right. Grew up in Sachem, Long Island. Little kid, came from a divorced family, not a good situation, but my mom raised 3 kids, got remarried. So sports for me was an outlet in terms of dealing with issues that I had personally.
Okay.
And it became very important to me as I grew up and even now as a father. So sports for me has been an outlet my whole life.
Okay.
Positively.
Okay.
Played college lacrosse. Went and decided I wanted to be a teacher.
Where'd you play? Where'd you play in college, Jay?
So I played at Sachem High School, then I played at Butler University for 3 years.
Nice.
I wasn't a lacrosse kid. I was really a football kid. Because I came from a single mother, like my father played football and lacrosse at Maritime.
Okay.
But he had left, and we didn't know where he was for a long time. And then she got us involved in sports because she wanted to make sure we weren't doing things after school, obviously.
Sure.
She was working 2 or 3 jobs. Would drop us off at the PAL fields, and we'd be there from 4 or 5 o'clock till 8, 9 o'clock at night when I was a little kid. And then it carried into junior high. I played football, I played lacrosse, and then in the 8th grade, they asked me to wrestle. I wrestled. Then in 9th grade is where it really clicked in. I was getting asked to play up, and people were taking notice, I guess.
Okay.
But I wasn't a lacrosse kid first.
Sure.
So I started on the varsity football team as a sophomore back when Sachem was 1.
Yeah.
And I wasn't going to play. I wrestled varsity as a 9th grader, 10th grader. I wasn't going to play lacrosse my sophomore year.
Okay.
Because I was just going to lift and do football.
Sure.
I was going to play linebacker, and I didn't want to. I was going to play linebacker, and they had asked me to play center that year, so I was doing that. And Doug Shanahan, actually, he was the quarterback that year. He actually grabbed me out of the weight room. He's like, "You're playing." So I went out, was on the JV for about half, not even.
Yeah.
And then they pulled me up to varsity, and
what?
I quickly.
And what do you think? Why'd they pull you up to varsity?
I have no idea. I don't know. Maybe they saw something in me. I wasn't like this lacrosse kid. Like I would literally pick my stick up in March, put it down in June. I would bring it to the beach if I was with my buddies or something stupid like that. But
Yeah, but I'm sure you were bringing a mentality, an attitude to the lacrosse
yeah,
field. You know, as a football
oh,
wrestling kid, I'm sure
yeah, I
they
think
loved
that
it.
was it. Yeah, listen, I was definitely edgy. I was I was definitely more of a I was I didn't come from a normal household. My mom remarried. We have five boys in the house, one girl.
Okay.
Both parents worked. I had issue. I was dealing with my father leaving and then coming back in the picture and then leaving. And so
Yeah,
I was
like ultimate adversity. I mean, that's
yeah. I mean, it was pretty bad. I mean, like
yeah,
my mom, would she worked three jobs. She was cleaning toilets, she was delivering newspapers, she was working at a bank. She would throw all three kids in the car and drive us to go deliver the newspapers at 3 in the morning, 4 in the morning. Like
yeah,
it was, like lived in a condo, had at some points had no lights, like the lights didn't get turned on, or a phone, like you couldn't make outgoing phone calls
yeah.
because she couldn't pay the bill that month. Like,
Right.
I'd bring in canned goods um, for Thanksgiving food drive. It was coming right back to me, but I had no idea because I was a kid. I didn't know
Sure. Sure.
the severity of it. So I was definitely my mentality and the way I played lacrosse was not maybe normal to what the
Right.
way other
It didn't
people
it,
did.
it didn't fit in as everyone else was at that time.
Yeah, it was just different. Like
Yeah.
I didn't look at football for me. I loved it, and lacrosse I didn't love yet. Um, like I said, I had a lot of success in it, but I just didn't love it. And then
Sure.
when I got brought up and then I had success, and I made the Empire team. And then I was starting to get all these recruiting letters. The problem was is I didn't do the right thing in school
Right.
because
Right.
I was a three-sport athlete because I didn't put the time and the effort into the academic end of it, and I just thought because I was a good athlete, I was going to go play college sports.
Right. Right.
Um, so that hurt me big time. I listen, Butler was a great place. I loved playing there, and um, I was a high school American, and then I went to Butler. I had a good career there. I was two-time All Conference, and then I actually left there because I wanted to come home and be a teacher.
Okay.
And I went and played. I played a year at Dowling
Oh, nice.
with my brother, which was cool. And then I had a good career for the year there, and then I got into teaching and coaching at Station.
That's cool. That's cool.
Yeah.
So at what point did you take your like your love of sports and really like when did it, I know you said like ninth grade it kind of clicked, but is ninth grade when it really hit you like this is not just about having fun, it's about like maybe my future, maybe the love of competition, things like that,
I think
outside of just running around and having fun with your friends.
I think it was I love the competition end of it, but it's when I realized that it was taking me to places I didn't think I could go. If
Right.
that makes sense in
Yeah.
terms of
Sure. Or
college and
right.
getting an education and getting a scholarship and also like I was in the weight room, my body was changing. There were so many things that were going on in terms
Yeah.
of what I was. I just didn't know because I came from my mom is working so much, or
Right.
she cared. My mom is the best. What she did for us and us three kids, I can never repay her for because she put us in those situations where I was able to get my education and learn lessons that
Yeah.
now I take it and I try to apply to my athletes and my own children.
Right. Yeah, of course. I mean, just as you were telling that story and giving the background of that, the two words that popped into my head immediately were like love, like true unconditional love, and
Yep.
and toughness.
Yes.
I mean, that's like
My,
it jumped right off the page for me,
yeah, yes,
among
yeah.
other things.
So like, I mean, like just my mom always has this saying, pick yourself up from the bootstraps. Guys that coached me, guys like Marco Wojciechowski, Frank Pizarro, Rick Mercurio, don't
Yeah,
ever feel sorry for yourself. So those type of things is the way I was raised and how I mentally have developed and the way I am as a coach and as a teacher and most importantly as a parent.
sure.
I'm lucky because I married, my high school sweetheart. She's one of the best things that ever happened to me, and she is, first of all, she married me, so she's got to be just as crazy or crazier.
Yeah.
But she was an athlete. She played Division I lacrosse. Her father was the coach at Smithtown for 30 years. He played at the Naval Academy and then went to Delphi. So like I'm lucky in the sense of we're the same person a little bit.
Yeah.
So my mentality is her mentality. Like obviously there's a little bit of differences, but
Sure.
it all intertwines
right.
on some level.
It intertwines and it's moving in the same direction.
Yes.
Right. Even with little micro differences, it's still moving in the same direction.
Exactly.
That's cool. Yeah, I mean, you're definitely lucky.
Yeah.
With a partner like that.
So so I mean, at the end of the day, I definitely saw where sports could take me, and then I tried to use that chip on the shoulder / everyone's against me, and I'm going to go out there and just try to dominate you or the team in any way possible. If that makes sense.
Yeah. No, I mean, it definitely makes sense. And can you recall at what point of your athletic career, like, were you conscious of that? Like, was that in high school? Was that in college?
Yeah,
like when you actually knew what you were doing? Because I'm sure you were doing it as a little kid. You just weren't conscious of it.
I think it was high school. I think it was, 9th, 10th grade.
Okay.
Like, yeah, I mean,
and even with that, like you felt even a little bit different on the mat, on the football field. Like, could you sense that your mindset was a little more intense than other kids? Or it didn't even matter. It's just this is what I'm doing. This is me, and I'll kick your ass if I have to.
Yeah, I mean that's really. I just wanted to be as mean and as tough as possible. I guess that's the only way I can explain it. Like,
yeah. And
it's funny. Like I see people that I played against in high school and college, and they'll say things, and I swear I don't remember them. Like I don't remember being that way. Like I joke with Matty Moffitt. I'm very friendly with.
Yeah.
We're really good friends, and I played against him. I was a senior when he was a sophomore, and then at Sachem, and then I played against him when he was at Duke before he went to Loyola. And he'll tell me things that I did when we played him, and I don't remember. And I liked him. It was just I got into a zone when I played where.
Yeah.
I was just I wanted to dominate. If that makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, there's if you follow great athletes, you follow trainers that talk about different things, and when they talk about that zone or the popular phrases like the flow state, when you're in that flow state, it's like you really don't have conscious memory. Guys can walk off a basketball court after scoring 60 and being like I don't know what I did. And it's that zone, exactly what you're talking about. But it's funny, it's funny though, the guys that you were trying to dominate, it seems like they remember because you're going after them. They're not going to forget that.
Yeah, I guess. I don't know. I have no idea.
Yeah.
I don't, I just was.
Yeah. No, I mean, that's obviously that's what drove you, and that's what got you to such a high level. And do you feel like that's any parts of those still drive you, whether it's in your your professional job or coaching?
Oh, I think the so I first of all I don't believe teaching is a job. I love what I do, and I never think that I'm getting up for work.
That's cool. That's cool.
Yeah, so I love what I do. I do love coaching, and where teaching and coaching obviously correlate is it's about relationships.
Yeah.
So what do I mean by that? And going to your question,
Yeah.
what drives me is I want to have those relationships so I can go back and see someone or talk to someone and being able to have those good memories, right? So
Yep.
even though the way I played, I don't remember being so intense. I still would have. I would still see Matt after the game and say what's up and talk to him or whoever it was.
Sure.
So I think, but I do think that chip on the shoulder, that not with me not being coming from the ideal situation as a kid, I still think that plays into me wanting to be the best at whatever I do.
Sure.
If that makes sense.
Yeah.
And that definitely drives me. I'm going to outwork you. I'm going to try to do whatever I can to win.
Right.
That makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. Now to that point, do you recall, whether high school, college, do you recall like finding different ways to prepare based on your like competitive mentality? Did you feel like you were outworking kids, out in the off season, not just at practice? Like, were you doing other things?
I would definitely try that. Yeah. Like
Yeah.
winter break, I'd come home and I was running or I was lifting and listen, I had to learn, like, in high school, I played 3 sports. I would work out in the summer, but I didn't really know what hard work was. Like, I would go to a football practice and that was hard work and we did things
Sure.
But like there was no speed and conditioning. There was no real private training. There was none of that when we were kids, right?
Yeah.
So I had to learn, my freshman year on how to work, if that makes sense.
Right. Well, I think it's also, I think to your point about being a 3-sport athlete, like you're with a team for a couple months, then you go right to another team for a couple months, and then you go to another team for a couple months, and it's structured, right? Like if you're into sports, you kind of fall in line and you do your thing. Yeah, I think what a lot of kids 100%. Don't understand is once you pick one sport in college, like although it's very time consuming, you're going to have more free time than you've ever had in your entire life. 100%. So it's like both extremes. And so that's what you're talking about. Like in that free time, it's like that's really where the work is done, which no one really knows until you go through it.
Exactly right. So that's why I never had, to your point, I never had that free time. Right. So I didn't know.
Yeah.
Like if I got a week off, I was like, oh, like football, we would either be in the semifinals or the county finals, right?
Yep.
So then the wrestling coach would be like, all right, take a week off. So I take a week off, and then I go right into wrestling. So like my rest time was real rest time in high school, so I didn't know any better.
Right. You really needed to recover.
Yeah. I mean.
Yeah. And get ready.
I mean, listen. At the end of the day, I was a high school kid.
Well, yeah.
Did I really need that week to recover? No. I mean, I mean, but like.
Your body's probably thanking you now for at least a little bit of rest.
Yeah. Except when I get up at 5 a.m. before school and go try to run 4.5, 5 miles, my back and my legs are balking.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I think to your point of using what has happened in my past drive me now and drive me then, yes, it definitely has an impact on who I am as as a coach and a teacher.
Sure.
Sure.
And like, are you searching for like that Jay Mauro on the field, like that kid with that super intense competitive attitude? Like, are you still like looking for that, or are you seeing a little bit of balance? Like, how has it changed over the years?
For myself, for me, as a coach, you mean?
Yeah, like like as a coach, we all feel it. You kind of connect with certain kids because they're either they remind you of yourself, or maybe they remind you of the kid you wanted to be. Like different things like that. Like, do you feel like you're looking for Jay Mauros, or are you just looking for kids who are into it and serious and prepared?
Yeah, what I've learned over my career is every kid is different, and every kid you want to try to develop a relationship with,
Yep.
and understand that you're never going to get the same thing from each person. So you have to accept everyone. And if you want to be successful, you have to accept everyone and then take what they give you and take the good out of it, if that makes sense.
Sure.
Now, listen, obviously, like to your point, you're going to gravitate to people that you get along with better because of whatever reason it is. The way they play, the way they act, so.
Yeah, and that's going to be anywhere in life, not just
exactly.
on the field, yeah.
Yeah, but I think, what I just try to do is I try to give whoever I coach everything I have so they appreciate it, meaning
sure,
or they appreciate it. At the end of the day, if kids know you care about them,
yep,
they'll always listen to you and believe in you no matter what.
Sure.
But you have to care. So I always try to add that. I learned that as a coach, as a teacher. I learned that very early in my career.
Yeah.
That helps, right? So
yeah, and learning that, was that through experience, or was that through like a mentor telling you, like, hey man, like?
I think both. I think I think it was early on. Like, I graduated from college. I took a year off. The school split, and I became the head coach at Sachem when the school split.
Oh, so it's right away.
So my first year as a varsity head coach was 2005. Was the first year of the split.
Oh wow!
So,
okay.
I had no idea what I was doing. Like looking back, I knew nothing.
Right. Yeah, and that just really goes to the point of just kind of starting a new chapter in your life, and it's like taking what you've learned and try to apply it to what you're doing now. Because I mean, I look back at the same thing when I first started coaching. I graduated college in May, and I was coaching, in August. September, once the kids came to campus, and it was just, I look back now, I'm like, oh, I had no clue. But I think that also
100%.
goes to the fact that, you as a coach, you as a teacher, you as, a competitor, you're always looking to learn and grow, right? So hopefully you're not anyone listening, hopefully you're not the same person you were 10, 15 years ago, because you want to grow, you want to adapt, right?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. I mean, you want to always try to better yourself, because when you better yourself, you're going to better somebody else, and hopefully use lessons you've learned to help them.
Sure.
That's the goal, right? That's what I think the goal is.
Yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense. Makes a lot of sense. And then, like, you can, like what you're saying, you better yourself, and it goes back to what you were saying before about relationships. You just create relationships, and that goes beyond the field. That goes beyond just the games. And I'm sure I'm sure you're still friends with a lot of kids you played in college with, like. And the times you talk about, they're not necessarily always the games. It's the bus ride to a game. It's the weekends or the really tough practice, right? It's not just about like who scored the goals and things like that. Because there's more to the relationship than just the wins and losses.
Yeah, I mean, listen, you know this when like the bus rides, right? Like there was nothing better to me than playing a game. Hopefully, obviously you want to win,
right?
But then you get on that bus, you're all tired, you're beat up, you're sore, and you're with your boys, and you're driving home, and you're watching that movie, you're hopefully doing some schoolwork, but. Those are the times those are the things I miss, the locker room, and that's why, coaching is great because of those relationships. But you definitely have to change mentally from a player to a coach. You have to, and that's something I think you learn that over time, right? Like I can't be the super intense. I'm super intense, but I've learned to to use it in certain situations and not, in game day, I have to be calm. If I'm the head coach or I'm coaching, you have to be calm. And I've had to learn that, right? Because on game day for me as a player, I would get so jacked up at, I wanted to go out there and, you understand what I'm saying?
I understand completely, because now you're the figurehead. You're the one. All eyes are on you as the head coach, and if you're a maniac, there might be one or two kids, especially in today's huddle. There might be one or just a handful of kids that relate to that. Everyone else is going to be turned off and freaked out and not be able to perform.
Yeah. And listen, it's not that you can't be yourself. You always have to be yourself. That's one thing that I believe in, and I'll never change is I'm going to be me, and they're going to get to know that through the relationship we build, right? So, us having that relationship, you're going to know me, you're going to understand me, but I also have to make sure that as a coach, your mental and how you deal with things and how you react to situations has to be different than you were as a player, right? That's how you grow. I learned that a long time ago. So
and I think it's about learning different versions of yourself, and like what we said before, like even just you and your wife parenting, like
100%.
you're very similar, but there's always going to be differences, but you're moving in the same direction. So you go from athlete to coach, you're still going to be you. You're going to have a little different version because you have a different role. Your job is different now. It's not to just put your head down and, take people out. It's, I got to help the team win, and I got to put them in the best position to be successful. So this is the version I bring to the sideline on game day. But even through my intensity, and like you said, like the relationship, during practice and off-season workouts and things like that, they're going to know that my intensity is working in the same direction. We're all, pulling a rope in the same direction, whatever analogy you want to use, but we're going in the same direction.
100%. Yes. Yeah. We're going to work. We're going to, we're going to do what we need to do. And no one's going to say we didn't work hard. And, we're going to do it together. But, I also have to understand that, on game day, I can't be that kind of intense or dealing with different situations. You know what I mean? You just you change. You mentally have to adapt to the situation
for sure
at all times.
And has there been anything over the years that has helped you remain calm during on the sideline during a game? Like anything specific, any kind of specific self-talk, or you look at something, or anything like that?
I think the biggest thing is just big picture, right? At the end of the day, kids are kids, and they don't. If you get mad, they throw a bad pass or they make a bad decision. You just got to say to yourself, they're a kid.
Right.
At the end of the day, and they're not doing it on purpose.
Right.
And we're all human beings, and I'm a big believer in telling the kids all the time, hey, I'm going to own up. I've made mistakes. I make mistakes.
Yep.
To this day, in 2014, I'll blame myself for us losing the Final Four to Smithtown East. And I tell the guys that have played for me on that team, I tell them that all the time, and I think that goes a long way as well. Like when you can self-assess, look in the mirror, and you're always willing to blame yourself first. I have a saying, and I don't remember where I got it from, but point your thumb and see where it goes, right? So I'm going to always point my thumb.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because
we had a saying like that in college: thumbs, not fingers.
Yeah. Just because if I don't point my thumb, how could I ever hold anybody else accountable?
Sure.
Right. So.
And even if you tried, they wouldn't listen because you lost credibility.
Exactly right. So the minute you just start pointing fingers, and that's something you teach. I teach my kids, my son and daughter, right now. That's
sure.
My wife and I on them about that, and they're 7 years old in first grade.
Yep.
You know, all the sports they're involved in. So, or just in life, and it's all life lessons at the end of the day. Yep. I believe
it is. It is. I mean, yes, sports is really just like a big lesson for life. Definitely is.
Yes.
I see that. So, I mean, you brought up like the accountability piece. Is that like what? So, as far as going post game or after a long day of work, something like that, is there any tool, any tactic you've used to like assess and figure out what goes on just outside of watching film?
Yeah, I mean, I'll always take a deep breath, gather my thoughts. I'm always calm after a game because you can't judge anything until you watch film. At the end of the day, as a coach, I've learned that.
Sure.
Because you could say, "Oh, I saw this, I remember that," but it didn't happen that way.
Very different.
You're so locked in. Yeah. So, what I try to do is just take deep breaths. Relax. Understand that there's so much emotion involved that I want to try to be as emotionless as possible. Now, with that being said, last game of the year or something like that, you're going to have your emotions.
Right.
But
sure.
I try to always keep, and I always tell myself, the sun's going to come up tomorrow, and we're going to be all right, and we're going to figure it out, because you need that sense of positivity, or you'll never be successful, and you'll never.
Yeah.
You'll lose the kids, you'll lose the program.
Sure.
Because they don't want to hear everything's over.
Right.
After one game.
Right. It's all doom and gloom. Right.
Yeah. It's not good mentally. It's not, with that being said, you still got to hold kids accountable, and you still got to hold yourself accountable and hold your staff accountable. And,
right.
If we're all doing that, we're going to all have success.
Well, it sounds like what you're just saying about big picture, right? It's like the internal conversation about short term versus long term. Like, all right,
100%.
This is the short term, but the long term is really what we're, is keeping us
always way more important than the long term. That you always have to think about that.
Yeah.
And understand that you're dealing with 25 to 45 different personalities and different mindsets and different situations.
Sure.
I think about myself, what I grew up in. Every kid is going through something different. It could be something simple as, they broke up with their girlfriend, or their parents are fighting, or there was a death in the family, or their dog died, or anything where it can affect the kid's emotions. That's why you have to always, and I've learned this, is check your own emotions for the betterment of the kids and the program over the long haul.
Right.
If that makes sense.
No, it makes complete sense, because I look at it, and a lot of people on this podcast have talked about different struggles, and it's like if you're coaching a kid, like judging their struggle is meaningless. Like if they're affected by it, then guess what? Then the play,
respect that.
Right. Then their production on the field is going to be affected, or their relationships with their teammates are going to be affected. Everything's going to be affected. So it's not about, is that a real struggle or not? It's like it's the pebble in their shoe, and that's what needs to be figured out. But like 100%. You said, if the foundation of the relationship is there, then it becomes a lot easier. But for coaches who don't have those relationships, you're not going to get to the bottom of it.
100%.
Eventually it'll bite you in the ass.
I just think the relationship thing, though, is just so important, because, and listen, I've not been perfect. I don't claim to be perfect. I don't.
Sure. Yeah.
I've tried, and I'm going to continue to try, and I'm going to improve, and I'm always going to look to improve. And
yeah, that's all you can do.
The relationship piece is just so important, because at the end of the day, those relationships last way longer than the wins and the losses.
No doubt. Yeah.
That's what's most important.
Yeah.
And if you mentally can understand that, and then, use that while you're coaching and understand that, it'll make you that much better, I think. And I had to learn that.
Yeah. Yeah. And it takes almost like you got to become like a private eye, like an investigator, and don't just take things at face value with kids where they'll be like, I'm fine. They're really not.
Yeah, no.
Or they're acting like they're not fine, and you really find out that, they're pebble in their shoe that day. They could easily overcome it just with a couple words from their coach or something like that. So you got to constantly be just after these kids and looking after them and asking questions and digging deeper. So, yeah, it all makes sense. It definitely all makes sense. All right, man. So, I think we're good. I think we can wrap this up.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. So, is there anything you want to share? Where can people follow you? Learn more about you?
You can follow me on my Instagram. It's just that my Instagram is @_J Mauro.
Okay, I'll put that in the show notes.
Yeah, @_JYMAURO. The lacrosse, the high school one, that's my personal one. The lacrosse one is @Sachem North Lax.
Okay.
My personal one, you're going to see all about my kids at the end of the day.
They got some really good stick work. If anyone's looking.
Yeah.
These kids got really good sticks.
Yeah, they're into it. They're only in first grade, but they are really into it. And
that's awesome.
They work hard, and it's cool as a father to watch them. Like every morning, what's the workout for today? They want to do a workout. It's cool. It's definitely.
It's cool that they have each other. That they have each other to like compete with, compete against, and experiment different stick work drills and things like that. That's pretty special.
It's definitely it's a blessing and a curse. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, I have two boys, a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old. So the 2-year-old is just getting old enough where he can start to, throw his weight around a little bit. So it's getting interesting over here.
Oh yeah, it's gonna be it'll be real interesting real soon. You'll see.
I know it's coming quick. I know it.
Very quick.
But all right, man. I really appreciate your time and all your insights. You've been listening to the Lead Domino podcast, powered by MDP. We hope you enjoyed today's episode. Reach out. We'd love to chat and learn more about you and how we can help. Visit us at mdplacrosse.com and follow us on Instagram @mdplacrossetraining and @Lead Domino Media. Until next time, respect, inspire, and support yourselves and each other.